recording. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's webinar from Anicca Digital. I'm very pleased to say that I've got some guests with me today. I've got John and Tom from the UX Design Institute, who I'm going to get them to introduce themselves in a second. So yeah, let's do that straight away. So Tom, if you can, sorry, we'll start with John. If you could just give me a little bit of an introduction about yourself, and same with you, Tom, and then we'll do the polls and get everybody on the same page. So John, welcome.
Thanks for the introduction, Anne. So I'm John Doran. I head up partnerships here at the UX Design Institute. Previous to that, I worked with the Digital Marketing Institute for 7 years. So Anne knows me from the DMI. And I've worked in sales and marketing roles for about 17, 18 years now. I'm starting to lose count. So that's me anyway. And I'll be presenting mainly today, and Tom will be taking over towards the end. So I'll let Tom introduce himself there.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Anne. Yeah, so my role at the UX Design Institute is I head up the team that advises students kind of pre-enrollment. So we look after making sure that all the students, know all about the UX industry, know all about the UX roles, what they're getting into as a new career, and making sure that they have all the information to make the right decisions. So career changing is a complex subject, so we spend a lot of time really working one-to-one with all the potential students to make sure they're in the right place. So that's what I do.
Excellent. All right, well, let's run these polls. So for the people that are not familiar with the way that we work on these webinars, we've probably got a few new people today. Basically, I run these polls just so it gives us a little bit more time for a few more people to join. I read out the answers so that when you get the video, you actually know what I'm talking about. You can choose more than one answer when I start polling in a second. And then what will happen is that I'll pass over to the guys, and later on you'll be able to get the video as well. And just trying to sort out with Gurpreet the handouts. So I'm going to start polling now. I'm going to read the question and the answer. You can choose more than one, by the way, if it's applicable. So do you, oh, I've done the wrong one. Let's go back to the so the first one is, this is a little bit about you. So first of all, do you or your company have a dedicated design resource? So I'd always do the negative ones first. So no, I'm a student or currently unemployed. I'm self-employed or a freelancer and do not need any design help. I'm a self-employed or a freelancer and I can't do any design UX myself, and therefore you might need some help. I'm a self-employed or a freelancer and do some design myself. So that's people that are actually having a go at doing some design. Myself or my company do not need any design help. Myself and my company can't do any design or UX and need some help. And myself and my company do some design ourselves. So this is to really try and understand where you are. We do have a mix of companies and people that work for companies, and also people that are sort of self-employed as well. So the most interesting answer is myself or my company do some design. And that's actually 75%. So that's a very, very high answer. There's a couple of people saying that they need a little bit of help. There's one person saying they don't need any design help at the moment, but maybe they will in the future. So I've never seen it so dominant in one. It's gone down a little bit to 70%, but basically, and the majority of the people in the room actually are sort of working and they're doing the design themselves. So that's very interesting. So let me close that poll and let's go back to the queue and let's do the second one. So the second one is about the qualification and change and benefit in your career. So do you think a qualification in UX would benefit your career? No, it's not really relevant to me or my company to take the qualification. It's not relevant to me, but I know someone else that would benefit. So if you know somebody else, please click that button and we'll be able to contact you after. My company would benefit from me or one of my colleagues taking the qualification. Looking forward to hearing more. Where do I sign? Oh, that's good. We've got a few people saying, where do we sign? I like a bit of enthusiasm first thing in the morning. So I sort of expected this. The majority of the people are saying that it would benefit one of them. So 43%. And then we've got 22% that already want to sign up. So that's amazing. It's just flicked a little bit. So yeah, we've got about 36% saying looking forward to hearing more. So that's brilliant. Excellent. Okay, well, I'm going to take my camera and my mic off now and let you guys get on with it. For everybody that's not familiar with the platform, if you go to the top right corner of the black box, you'll see some arrows which will allow you to expand your screen. That means that you'll be able to see things in a little bit more detail. So good luck, guys, and I'll see you in about 45 minutes.
Thanks very much, Anne. So just a short agenda for today. So just going to speak very quickly about our partnership with Anicca. Then we're going to go into why good UX matters. Going to have a quick look at future trends and speak a little bit about them. And then we're going to get into some of our research that we have done in the market about UX and our programs. And at the end, we're going to speak about a special offer that we have with Anicca, and then we'll do a quick Q&A session at the end. So just very quickly about the partnership. So we chose to work with Anicca as the lead and trading provider, in the the northeast of England. They're our premium partner in the UK. The reason we chose to work with them is because they already have a strong set of industry validated programs. So we felt it was a good match, just to have a very good local knowledge on the ground. Obviously, Anne and the team are really familiar with the agency industry, with the design industry, and with the digital marketing industry, both in the Northeast and throughout the UK. So really with Anicca, they bring the local knowledge. And for us here in the UX Design Institute, we aim to bring the global knowledge as such. Just a little bit about the UX Design Institute. So we're based out of Dublin, Ireland, in the Digital Hub, just beside the Guinness factory, the Guinness Storehouse. Our programs are credit rated and quality assured by the Glasgow Caledonian University, so they fit on the European qualifications framework. Probably more importantly, though, is we work very closely with the industry. So we do this through our Industry Advisory Council. We have representation from over 20 of the world's leading brands, including people like Google, Meta, HubSpot, etc. And they actually feed into our curriculum just to make sure that we're in line with the industry trends. We're all about teaching the real employable skills of UX and UI rather than the more sort of academic theory. We focus on real employable skills. So today, I'm going to, first of all, speak a little bit about why good UX matters. Here's some stats from industry leaders. So according to HubSpot, 88% of consumers are less likely to return to a site with bad UX. According to the organization SWEOR, 90% of users will leave a site owing to bad UX. PwC says 32% of users will leave a brand they love after they have a bad experience. I think we've all experienced that. We might have had a bad experience, booking a flight or booking a car rental or something like that. And the company we always use lets us down in a bad way. And we go to the competitor. Over 100 million jobs in UX globally by 2050, according to Nielsen Norman. Nielsen Norman are probably the thought leaders in the US in UX. In fact, we had a webinar last night with Don Norman from Nielsen Norman. I'm going to speak a little bit about that later on in future trends. And then some other stats. So for every dollar spent on improving UX, your return will be $100. I should probably got the sterling stat for that, but it's obviously from the US. According to Amazon, AWS, 35% of sales are lost due to bad UX, and this translates to about 1.4 trillion worth of sales globally. So now I'm just going to delve into a little case study just about why bad UX matters. And I guess it's a tale of two divergent phone companies, in the 2010s. Around 2010, 2011, BlackBerry were in a very competitive position. They were a market leader. People like Barack Obama loved their BlackBerry, spoke about it all the time. and they had a lot of advocates and people who would only use BlackBerry. But they released a phone in 2011, and this is really the story behind it. So I'm just going to hit the play button here.
Hey, Pete Pasha here with Mashable. I hold in my hand the first BlackBerry 10 smartphone. This is the phone that RIM is betting its future on. You'll notice there's no home button on this. You actually unlock the phone by sliding up like that. You navigate in some creative ways. There's a screen here where if you go to the left, you get your whole inbox, including emails, BlackBerry messages, Twitter notifications, that kind of thing. The thing is, it's all gesture-based, so you have to sort of go up, down, slide up to minimize apps. The thing, it's very different from other smartphones of today, and we're going to go to see if anyone can actually figure this out on the first try with no instruction. Okay, try unlocking the phone.
How the hell do I turn it on? Oh, let's see. Oh, arrows. Okay.
Okay, I think it's unlocked. Yeah, I think it's unlocked.
Yeah, I'm trying to swipe up. Okay. I think I unlocked it like an Android phone.
Unlock the phone. Got it? Not unlocked.
Is this part of this making it really difficult? Got it.
Now, try to find your email.
Find my email. My email or your email?
Find the email.
Any email.
So you get the gist there. I don't think I need to go through any more of that video. But basically, pretty much what happened is that, based on the bad UX of that phone, pretty much BlackBerry went from a market leader selling 50 million phones in 2011 to actually exiting the market in mobile phones, in smartphones in 2016. Now, they still exist today. The RIM platform is still used through software, but it pretty much, they went from a market leader to, actually exiting the phone market. So this is, I guess, the opposite story due to Apple's good UX in the actual 2000s. So this video is from the
videos and more. I'm an artist right now. Well, how do I scroll through my list of artists? How do I do this? I just take my finger and I scroll. That's it.
So that video was taken from the release of the iPhone back in 2011, or sorry, 2010. And you can see what happened here with the iPhone. So they went from 72 million units in 2011 all the way up to 212 million units. And that quite a bit of that was down to obviously their tech, but also their UX as well. So that's a case study to show the power of good UX. Those videos will be available in the follow-up if you want to watch the full ones. So I'm just going to move on to talk about some future trends in UX and how, I guess, we address them here at the UX Design Institute. So just to start off, these are kind of the main future trends at the moment. It's not an exhaustive list. There's quite a few other areas going on as well. Just to say, I'm not an expert into these areas, but what we do in the UX Design Institute is we actually do bring in experts to speak about them, and we do bi-monthly webinars with some of the industry leaders. So some of the future trends, obviously artificial intelligence, everybody's talking about it at the moment. A big trending area at the moment is voice UX. And then also we have virtual reality and augmented reality in UX. Some of the more, I guess, softer areas of future trends are things like ethical design in UX, emotional design in UX, and data-driven UX. So how do we address these areas in the UX Design Institute? So what we do is we get subject matter experts in to speak about them. So for example, just a workshop we held in June was with the principal UX designer at Brain Technologies, one of the leading organizations for UX and AI, a guy called Nick Babbage. And he pretty much comes in and he speaks about better UX design with AI and how to use different tools, etc. How to use the chatbots or ChatGPT, etc., to do research, to do scripting, but also how to use other platforms to build prototypes, and also how to do data analysis through AI, etc. So that's one way in which we address these future trends. We also get people in from large organizations to speak about, how they actually do their UX. So, for example, we had Dr. Stephen Hassard in from Google talking about research and data-driven UX. We've people in from Meta speaking about AR and VR. And how UX affects, virtual reality and how to design for the virtual worlds, etc., and how to carry out research, etc., for those areas. Then just in terms of other future trends, voice UX is a huge growth area at the moment. Obviously, voice user interface design is very important. Things like natural language processing, NLP, etc., is a huge growth area. These have great influence, and the technology can be used greatly for areas like accessibility, to help people who are visually impaired, etc., with devices. So big area at the moment, voice UX, but some other trends we look into, are like UX in fashion design, UX in product design, etc. So yesterday evening, we actually had an actual webinar with Mr. Don Norman, who'd be widely considered as the godfather of UX. He actually coined the phrase UX design back at Apple in the 1990s when he was vice president of Apple. And Don Norman is very much all about design for the better world, or ethical design. And some of the main areas he centers on is the user-centered approach, inclusivity, also accessibility, but mainly about the societal impact of UX design and how UX designers can actually design for a better world, and look at the big issues, things like sustainability and impact on the environment, etc., and how UX can actually change the world. So that's some of the ways we address the future trends. We have these webinars on a bi-monthly basis, and now I'm going to move on, and I'm going to let Tom take over here at this stage and talk a little bit about the UX Design Institute, the research we do, and then the programs that we build on the back of this research to address the future trends within the industry.
Thanks a million, John. So obviously, as a UX organization, we're not just teaching. We've got to be out there doing research, understanding the market, understanding all those trends. So we undertook a huge body of research at the beginning of the year for what we call the Journal of UX Leadership. It's kind of an industry-focused journal. It's looking at the leaders of UX across the globe and getting their insights to help understand this industry today, so we can obviously better prepare our students. So at the beginning of this year, when we undertook it, some of the big headline stats around UX demand and I suppose the future of UX. So the kind of key numbers would have been 79% of UX leaders believe the demand for UX in their organization is going to continue to increase over the next couple of years. 68% of leaders expect their company to hire UX professionals in 2023. So the hiring of UX designers is still in full demand, even if there has been some rather bleak headlines around tech in the early parts of this year. 69% of UX leaders find it difficult to attract senior UX talent. That's something we see globally. Something we see on from our side as educators all the time. There is a huge gap, particularly around mature and senior talent in UX. And then 86% of UX leaders believe it's very important for UX professionals to engage in learning and development. And a lot of that is around I suppose the UX market is still quite young. And there aren't still very clear pathways into a career in UX. It's still not an industry where people start out at 18 and come out the other side at 21 or 22 with their degree in UX and then move into their role. It's still a role where most people are transitioning from other careers into UX and constantly building on their skill sets to develop them, as opposed to having done one long qualification. You can jump on there, John, if you don't mind, please, on to the next slide. And sorry, John, if you actually don't mind going back, just some of the kind of headline roles, actually, just to call out. So big trends we're seeing around 2023 is UX researcher is probably by far one of the most sought after roles, particularly because of the lack of specialist researchers, content designers, and UX writers. Content is now becoming even more important to the product development process. So people focusing on the copy, on the content, bringing that into the process a little bit earlier. UX architecture and designers, product designers, all in steady demand, and all subjects that we will cover in a lot of detail on our courses. So John, if you want to move on. So at the UX and Design Institute, we specialize in the area of UX and UI. That's our main area of specialization. And we have some big programs. Our biggest program is the Professional Diploma in UX Design. That's our kind of career switching UX fully credentialed program. We also have some short courses, Introduction to UX. We have also a certificate in UI design, which is the equivalent of the diploma, but for UI designers. And then we have another course around software and coding for UX designers. And that course is more aimed at how to speak the language of a developer so you can work more effectively with them, as opposed to a coding and development course. And then our latest course is content design, which is again focusing on the copy, working getting more specialist into things like UX writing and user research coming out in next month as well, which is a specialized course. And we have some other course like accessibility coming in the new year as well. John, if you don't mind. Yep. And then we get quite a broad audience for the courses, and what we've seen, particularly since the pandemic, is a huge navigation of people towards UX as a new career. I think we've seen a lot of reflection in during the pandemic times, where people wanted to have, maybe firm up their career, move out of something maybe they're not as happy in, into something more creative, something more interesting, get more into the tech side of things. And so we get a lot of career switchers, people who are coming out of, unrelated disciplines at the very start of their journey. A lot of upskillers who are people who have maybe been working in industries like graphic design, things like that, where there's a lot more demand on them now to take on UX responsibilities. So in the absence of UX professionals and companies struggling to hire, a lot of people are upskilling internally, moving their existing staff towards UX careers. And graphic designers, web designers, digital designers, anyone in those sort of spaces tend to be given opportunities, or professionally they want to do it themselves, kind of future-proof, firm up the next maybe 10 years or 20 years of their career, and they're moving towards UX design. And then we get a lot of people from kind of adjacent careers, people who have had a lot of experience working with UX designers on projects who maybe get the bug, they get that desire to move towards UX. So marketers, software developers, sales, people who are on the peripheries, they've had a lot of experience on UX projects but never actually done it themselves. Now they want to be on the front, at the early stages of the product development process, actually engaging and working with the users. So so quite a broad audience for the courses, but all generally with the same goals. There's a lot of reasons we're seeing a lot of navigation towards UX. In terms of as a career, it's one of those careers which is just very suitable to kind of a good work-life balance. You know, it accommodates hybrid working, it accommodates remote working. You can work for a company from the west of Ireland and be based in the United States, or vice versa. It's really open to those kind of roles. And we've seen that particularly in the pandemic. UX designers were one of the first roles that went fully remote without a hitch, like nothing. There was zero disturbance to their role. All of their work could be moved, transitioned into online practices incredibly quickly. And also, one of the things to say is that businesses who tend to invest in UX tend to also have great company culture and tend to support their staff and tend to have the same sort of focus on their staff as they do for their users. It's a high salary, and a lot of it driven by demand. The average salary in the UK, for example, is about 54,000, and that can go up to anywhere up to 70, 80, 90,000 for senior roles. UX is now finally reaching that point of maturity where there are, multiple stages to the role, or right up to things like VP of UX and directors of UX and things like that within businesses. It's in demand. The last stats from Google were that there are 99,000 open positions in UX, and that was from earlier on the year. It's on the rise, and Nielsen Norman see that 100 million UX jobs globally by in the next 50 years, by 2050. And in demand, it's ranked number 5 as one of the as an in-demand skill. And then what I mentioned earlier, career satisfaction. It is a career where you're spending most of your time problem solving. You're generally trying to make life easier and better for customers, for consumers. You're trying to drive more business for companies and drive revenues through better experience. So you're generally not you're always working to make something better, essentially, in UX. So it is quite a satisfying career. It's quite creative as well. You're engaging a lot with people. You're working with the users. So there's a lot of it's quite people focused as well. And as I said earlier, businesses who invest heavily in UX tend to also have really great company culture and tend to be quite progressive. So we'll move on, John, if you don't mind. Just a quick look there. John has it on screen. The salaries across the UK, they vary a little bit from region to region, but your kind of junior salaries, are sort of between 32 right up to even 54 in the kind of junior 1 to 3 years experience. When you're in the mid levels, you're up to kind of between in the 40s up to late to anywhere up to 60,000, so kind of 40s to 50s average. And then as we said earlier, there are now senior positions in UX that can go right up to kind of 70,000, and even beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, there are now like companies like Microsoft, HubSpot, these kind of companies, they do have even director levels of UX and stuff like that now. So there are even higher up roles. Just to talk about our main program, John, if you, the Professional Diploma in UX Design. So that is our flagship course. That is our kind of career path into UX. And that's a course that focuses on teaching the entire UX design process. So it covers off the full process from end to end, which will be research, analysis, design, prototyping through to wireframing. It's all hands-on. It's a practical course. You're not just learning this in theory. You're working on projects all the way through, covering the full UX design process. You're working on 16 hands-on practical projects that take you through that entire life cycle, and ultimately build you a full body of work, a full portfolio of work, and that is actually ready to show potential employers. And then at the end of the course, you're getting your certification. You've got a university certified qualification in UX design. You want to move on, John, if you don't mind? And yeah, so just a note on this. So obviously, John spoke a little bit at the beginning about how we work with Anicca, and as part of part of being on the webinar with us today, we have this special offer. So the typical cost of the diploma is $2,750, but at the moment, and as part of the partnership and available to all you guys here today, there is £950 off the normal cost. So that reduces it from 2,750 down to £1,800. And that's running right up until the end of the month, so August 31st. So August 31st, the deadline. If you're trying to get that, if you do decide you would love to join the diploma course, you can contact the guys over at Anicca anytime. Happy to help. You can see their email address on screen there. It's inquiries@anicca.co.uk. You probably already know that if you're familiar with the team over there, but feel free to contact them about the course content, what's covered, and also if you're already considering enrolling, that is the place to do it, so the guys can help you out and make sure. And that's our September 5th course. So September 5th is the course start date, and August 31st is the deadline, and you get your £950 off. And yeah, so John, I don't know if you've anything else to say at this point on the slide.
Yeah, just about the program. So it's tried and trusted. We've been running the diploma since 2018. We've certified well over 10,000 students in it to date. The feedback has been immensely positive. We've a net promoter score of 70, customer satisfaction rate of 98%, and the course is rated by Google at 4.9. So that's just a little bit about the course. And like Tom says, if you want to avail of that, just get back onto Anicca. So I think we got through that pretty quickly, but we'll move on to a Q&A session. So I know there's some questions in the chat bar. So maybe
if I manage the chat and then you guys answer the questions, I think that's a really good thing. Sure. So I don't have to answer anything then. Although I have put in one thing about the payment plan. My first question was, it's level 5, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah, so it's level 5 on the UK framework, and also that's the same on the European qualifications framework.
Yeah, excellent. That's really important to know. So just to help you, A levels are level 3, and I think a degree is level 6. So it's sort of halfway between the two. So the first question I've got here, I'll work backwards through them, is what's the difference between UX and UI? Because there's 2 courses as well, isn't there, guys?
That's correct. Yeah. So we do separate them out. So UX and UI, they are slightly different disciplines. Some people will do both. It's becoming more and more attractive to actually be both a UX and a UI designer. Probably and it's very linear. It's UX first, then UI.
Just explain what UX and UI stands for, because some people won't know that.
Oh yeah, apologies. Yeah, so your user experience design is our UX side, so user experience, and then UI is user interface design. The key difference really is that the UX designer is designing the experience of moving through the product, so the user actually what they need to interact with to use the product. Let's say they're working on they're designing a banking app. The UX designer designs that journey of logging in, checking their balance, transferring some funds to their friend, but they're not trying to design the look and feel. It's just that journey. Whereas the UI designer comes along afterwards and says, right, we've got to make this look visually attractive to the user as well. So let's look at the color schemes, the shape of those buttons, the text we're using, the images, the icons. So it's really down to the level of design. UX designers do low fidelity sketch work. They don't actually design the final look and feel. They hand it off to a UI designer.
But you do get a lot of designers that migrate into UX as well, because it's an extra 100%. Skill, and quite often they're often the people that want to do it because they're already working in a world where they're designing websites, and the extra knowledge that you get from, a lot of it's around the psychology and the user journey side of things as well. It's not just pretty pictures, is it? It's the whole experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So from our experience, the what we see every day is graphic designers, anyone from a traditional design background are going to the UX side because they're really strong on the visual design side. And if they upskill in UX, they then have that kind of perfect skill set, which is UX and UI design together. So they end up with a really strong opportunities. So yeah, mixing the two of them together. A lot of designers have been thrown into the UI world as well, and have never actually had formal training. So we do get a lot of designers, like particularly graphic designers and things like that, who have been doing UI for a number of years, but actually never had the opportunity to go through any formal training in it.
Yeah. Okay. So let me pick out some specifics around the course first, and then we'll make sure we cover everything. So it's a level 5 course. What's the duration of the course, and how many hours of self-study and how many hours of guided learning is there? Is that online live like we do the DMI course, or is it recordings? What's the tuition approach?
Sure. So I do see, and I see another question there about working full time. So almost all of our students, they tend to work full time while they're taking the course, and we designed it around that. So we give you 12 months of total access to the course, but a schedule at the beginning that's 6 months long. So if you work about 6 hours a week, 5 to 6 hours a week, you can follow the plan and you'll be done in the first 6 months with an extra 6-month buffer there to allow for any problems that life throws at you along the way. The course is video based, and most of the time you're working on your hands-on practical projects and building your portfolio. But it is fully supported, and Monday to Friday we have a support team behind it answering questions, helping students out. We do run live webinars throughout the course that students can come and go to as much as they need to, or as little as they need to. They're not mandatory. And then we have a career support team towards the end of the course as well, for people who want to make the leap into a new career and want help getting ready for that.
Now, you basically start the course every month, and obviously this time of year the course is a little bit empty because everybody's going away, which is why you've been able to give such a wonderful discount. We don't usually get such a big discount, guys, so this is an amazing opportunity if you want to take it up, but you're committing now. So this particular offer is for people starting on the 5th of September. I mean, of course, you can enroll, even if you can't actually do very much for a couple of weeks, at least you've secured it. But the way that we offer a payment plan is we have to have 50% upfront on sign-in. So in this case, I can't remember how much it was now. I think that's £900, and then it's 3 times £300 over the next 3 months. So it means that you don't have to, and a lot of people will pay on their credit card because it's such a big investment, because of course designers are, a pure play designer, a graphic designer is not paid anywhere near the figures that you were quoting on salaries, are they? I mean, it's a big jump up from being a traditional designer to be a digital designer and then doing UX. It's a massive jumps. Now, let me go through some of the other questions that are specific about the course and also about the questions in the text. So I just want to ask about the portfolio. So obviously, if you're looking for a new job, you need a portfolio. But a portfolio is part of the assessment. So when we do the Digital Marketing Institute Digital Marketing exam, which most of you are aware of, that's over 12 weeks, a similar amount of time, actually. It's still about 100 hours. But it's an online multi-choice exam at the end. But this is a little bit more, there's a little bit more to this exam, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah. So for our course, it is slightly different because the portfolio is so critical to UX. UX is just one of those disciplines. You have to have a portfolio. So we split it out. There is an assessment of the portfolio and actually an exam, like you mentioned there. So for the portfolio, as you're going through the course, you're submitting your projects all the way along. You're completing projects, submitting them, and getting a grade for them. And at the end, then there's one overall portfolio assessment, and that'll determine your practical side, and then you've got your exam to look at your theory side, and the two of them come together to give you your overall grade for the course.
Now, as most people know, there are some grants for digital boot camps, and there are, so a lot of those courses are free. There are a few UX boot camps around, but none with the qualification. So the advantage of this course is that you're getting the qualification with it. We are hoping that in the future we'll be able to teach this ourselves. but at the moment we haven't got funding for this. However, in the marketplace, if you wanted to do the same qualification, it's incredibly a lot more expensive, 2, 3 to 5 times more expensive, some of the competitors. So why is it they're charging so much? Is it because theirs is more visits, or why is yours such a competitive price for what you get? Because I've seen the course material, it's amazing. So you know, why is it you can offer it at such a competitive price compared with, I think some of them are as 9, 12 grand, aren't they?
That's correct. Yeah. So there's quite a simple answer for that. A lot of the 1 or 2 I think that I believe you're referencing that are maybe 3, 4 times the cost. Their main audience are US-based students. They really target US students, where obviously we all know education is 4 or 5 times the cost of the UK or Europe. So their pricing is in line with US pricing, and for us, what we try to do is we try to keep our course costs to the average cost of a sort of 1-year course across Europe, and make it more accessible from that perspective. So it's all down to you know, there is demand for UX, and I think a lot of other providers, you know, have capitalized on that. But we're one of the only institutes that actually offer a recognized qualification in UX design. Some of the ones you mentioned don't even have that behind those courses.
And another very fundamental, thank you for that. Another fundamental question is that you don't have to be a designer to do this course. You don't have to have any previous experience, do you? So it's a course that you can by step go, because I was doing some coding experience, coding course, which somebody's asked about in a second. I'll ask you that question. And the first part of that course was about UX. And actually, somebody from a marketing background who's done sort of a bit of psychology and user journeys and personas. I'd done some of that stuff before.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Although it was only a 1-day course, you know, I found that quite in my comfort zone because I've got a marketing experience rather than a design experience.
Absolutely. Everything you just mentioned there and are perfect skills for UX. I mean, like the great thing about it is it's quite soft skill based. So there's most people, if they look at their own career, they have lots of transferable skills that they can actually bring to UX. So you're right, on the early stages, the research and analysis side of UX, a lot of that is psychology. It's just understanding the user, getting inside people's heads, having a good ability to really understand how people act and behave when they're using digital products. The design side of UX is very soft skill. As I mentioned earlier, it's mostly sketch work and just mapping out. So it's, you know, boxes and shapes on a mobile screen, as opposed to needing a design background. So it's like, if you're a people person, if you've got a good head for problem solving, if you've, you know, have, you know, decent presentation skills and things like that, those are the kind of skills that are really good to UX. Even on the tech side, where you're doing interactive prototyping, like the tools do the heavy lifting. So even if you've, you know, got a good enough tech knowledge to use Microsoft Excel with comfort, that's the kind of level that even the tools that we use in UX are. They're not anywhere near the climb of learning Adobe Illustrator or any of the coding or developers tools. They're nowhere near that kind of learning curve.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up the link, so if anybody's actually interested, they can go and get it, and then we'll go through, because we will start to get a few people. So if any of you are interested, if you want to click on this link, and it will take you over to our website where there's a form to fill in. We'll also have that information in the back end. So, or you can email myself, Anne at anicca.co.uk. I'll stick mine in. Let's just go through some of those questions then. So, okay, does UI, so UI rather than UX, which is the designy bit, does that involve any coding?
No, not. And again, there's a lot of common misconceptions around UX and UI. The biggest one is, do you need coding and development skills? No, technically in the disciplines, both of them don't require any coding or development. If you are, and it is a common misconception, but if you are seeing that out in the market with job specs and stuff like that, a lot of the time that's an indication that the company is very, very new to UX and they really don't understand the skill sets of a UX and UI designer. And so it is something you might come across, but if you are, it's generally a company that's quite misinformed, might be their first time investing in UX, and they really don't know what they're looking for.
Okay,
So-
I've got somebody here asking me about what are the key focuses we recommend we pay attention when building a new website to ensure a good UX from the get-go. Not so much about the course, it's more sort of a design question.
Yeah, well, the simple answer is the user. The user has to be right there at the very beginning of the process. So before, and this is what's central to UI or UX. This is that the central theme is that you do not put pen to paper and design anything until you have a full and clear picture of who's your user, what's their needs, what's their goals, what are they trying to achieve, and keeping in mind the whole way through the design process that you are not the end user, right? So you don't design for yourself. You keep your own opinions, your own assumptions out of the equation. And every time you're unsure about something, you check in with your potential user. You stay away from...
I think that's exactly the same as if you're doing marketing. You want to understand who your users are, and you want to understand what the competitors are and what the sort of status quo is. Because often, if you deviate too far away from the what a typical website looks like, you're probably going to fall flat because they've done research themselves. And then sort of wireframe it out and discuss it with lots of ideas before you've even got to the point of actually coming up with something that looks nice. Because a website is the design, the content, and the functionality. It's not just what it looks like.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Did you want to add anything to that, John?
Yeah, I think, it's all about sticking to the process. You need to do your research analysis, your prototyping, your wireframing, and, test again throughout. It's an iterative process when it comes to the research and analysis bit. You're always doing usability testing until you're ready to hand over to developers as such. So, I suppose you're not doing good UX without research. That's a lot of people like to skip that phase and jump straight into the design phase without really talking to the users.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions about the length of the course which we've taken, so we've mentioned, and Matt's asked, is the course easy to do alongside a full-time job? I mean, you just have to dedicate the extra hours, don't you? I mean, when we do our course, it's a full day once a week because it's compressed in, but you're effectively asking them to commit just under that, aren't you? It's sort of half a day, 6 hours.
Yeah, it's about 5 to 6 hours a week. And the key thing is that, we give you a schedule to follow because, everybody likes to have flexibility, but they also like to have a plan. And so we give you that schedule, but at any time life throws something at you, you can slow down, you can speed up, you can take a break. There is an extra 6-month buffer there for when something does come along. So if a big work project comes along and railroads you for a month, that's okay. You just finish the course on month 7 as opposed to month 6, so that there is flexibility built in there because we do know that most students work full time and they're trying to squeeze it in.
Okay, so there's a few jobs. Andras is Anicca's designer, so he's planted a few questions specifically. So there's a couple of things about what type of jobs there are. So would a first-time junior UX role in a company, what would be, apart from having the qualifications, what would make them stand apart? What would happen? What type of career for... Okay, so let me try and rephrase that. What is the sort of the start of a journey for a career in UX? I think that's a better question. Assuming somebody's done the qualification, what do you think would happen next?
Yeah, so from our experience, like there's like, I suppose one of the great things about UX, and because you're not competing with the typical flow of new graduates entering the industry, because UX doesn't have that. It doesn't have the thousands of new graduates coming out of university to fill the demand. It's quite easy to move from doing a qualification like our own into a first role in UX. And in the first 1 to 3 years, you're more than likely going to be working across that full process. So you're going to be doing the entire process from research right through to wireframing. As you then mature and as you kind of find your feet, then you start to look at the specialist areas. So someone who's really good on the people side, on the research side, they may go specialist and go down the UX researcher route. Someone who is really good on the design side, but not getting to complete projects, they may move on and bolt on the UI skills and become the UX UI designer. Somebody might look at other specialist areas like content design. They might bundle all their skills together and look at a product designer role as well. So there's lots of specialization in UX where somebody can go deeper, but usually what you want to do is get a good understanding and a good bit of experience working across the whole process first.
And I guess if you were an employer and you've got somebody who's got the UX qualification and may have done a little bit of a design job somewhere else, that might help them. Or if they've done a marketing job somewhere else. But the fact that somebody studied for 6 months and actually got the qualification and got a portfolio to show is going to be a big advantage over somebody who's just maybe done even a degree in design. Without that UX extra experience, you've got that competitive advantage.
Yeah, one thing we say to every student is to really look at your previous experience, where you're coming from, and how do you package that up to tell a compelling story about your transition into UX. So exactly what you said there. If you're a marketer who's moving into UX, there's so much crossover there that you're not new to UX. There's no point you saying, "Oh, I'm brand new to this subject." You've got to package up your marketing experience into a story about how you've now arrived at a point where you're going to do UX, as opposed to, "Oh, I didn't do it before and now I'm brand new to it." And our careers team are really good at sitting down with you and helping you shape that story of how all this experience has led you to UX, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that becomes clear once you start doing the subject, doesn't it? When you see what's involved.
Exactly.
What sort of employers are looking for UX staff at the moment? What type of companies actually want to take on somebody in UX?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because again, that's one where there's quite a lot of misconceptions. A lot of people associate UX with big tech like Apple, Google, Microsoft, Airbnb, all these companies. But really, where a lot of the jobs are in industries that are still digitally transforming. So, like, for example, one of the biggest employers of UX designers at the moment are banks. Like, every bank in the world right now are really scrambling to compete with the likes of Revolut and N26 and these new digital banks, the ones that are kind of native to the internet. And so they're there's thousands of open positions globally in banks right now for UX designers. It's all of the kind of undeveloped industries. So there's things like logistics and transport, industries who've never gone through a digital transformation. Financial services is probably actually one of the biggest hirers at the moment. And then there's all the new technologies like energy, automotive, like electric automotive, and those kind of industries that are still sort of new. So it's more in those types of industries. Manufacturing is another one that's hiring a lot as companies try to automate a lot of processes as well. So there's a huge amount of industries that are not sort of the traditional places we would think about UX,
Obviously, a lot of this, involves talking to people and sort of, I can imagine a massive big whiteboard with lots of marker pens or, Post-it notes and things. So I know that you can do a lot of this stuff with things like Miro boards, but does this tend to be a hybrid role, or or can you work remotely? I mean, is there a demand for people in the UK to work in the States, for example, or does it tend to involve some sort of sitting next to the team and thrashing things out?
That's really it actually depends on the company, and like, there are companies today who have the ability to work fully remote, but want everyone in one place 1 day a week or 2 days a week, just for just for that opportunity to collaborate. But as a role, it applies itself 100% to fully remote working. It doesn't mean that, like, sometimes you may have to go meet a client face to face, or you might have, you might have to run a workshop face to face. But everything that you do that you would have traditionally done before the pandemic in person has an online equivalent today. So all the workshops that we do in UX, all the research, all the usability testing, all that's kind of done remote these days. And so it really depends on the business's approach to remote or hybrid working. But there are, like, we see, and John, I think we've seen this recently, where, like, there's a big demand for UX designers in South Africa because they've all been nabbed by companies outside of South Africa. And they're all working remotely for businesses across Europe. So that is that there are trends like that at the moment where, companies are just going going further beyond their own locale for talent because it's not there.
Excellent. Okay, well, look, I've just stuck a link in the last chat just to in case anybody wants to click through to the site. The thing at the top's still there, the red link. I've got one more final question, and then we'll just send out reviews. Do we need to use iPad for sketching or drawing, or do we use pen and paper?
Well, in the course itself, we'll use Figma for a lot of the design work. So you're probably better to have a desktop or laptop. There probably is a Figma app for iPad, but there will be other things like usability testing that you'll be running, depth interviews, stuff like that. So a laptop or desktop. Doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a brand new MacBook Pro or anything like that. It can be 5 years old. Most of the tools for UX are web based, so you don't need a massively high powered machine to run them. So yeah.
Sorry to cut across, Tom. Just an important point on that too. You don't need to buy any expensive Adobe software or anything like that. There's a free version of Figma, a freemium version that we have available for the students, and then the other tools. There is free student versions as well. So you don't need to pay a big.
And the students get membership with the institute as well, which gives them access to lots of webinars and other resources as well, don't they?
Yeah. So
that's correct. Yeah.
Webinars I described there, all the students will get links to them, regularly to get the industry trends.
I've just put up the review link if anybody'd like to give the team a thank you for today. And the other thing I'd quite like to quickly do is give you just a link to the Leicester Digital Live conference. So if you're not aware of this, Leicester Digital Live is on the 3rd of October. The the tickets are £50 at the moment. So the regular price is £75. The £50 does include a hot buffet lunch. So actually most of the money goes towards the lunch. But we're expecting HubSpot, SEMrush. I'm still hoping TikTok are going to turn up, but I'll find out later today if that's happening. There's 10 speakers altogether, and we're going to be covering, it's all about automation and integration. So there's some amazing speakers. So hopefully you can get a ticket for that. Thanks very much, guys. That's really interesting. It's really, obviously we speak to people that are interested in the course, but it's much better coming from you guys because you're talking to people all the time. But thanks very much, everybody. We'll get you the video in an hour or so. If you haven't been able to get to the handouts, the webinar page on the website, you should be able to get them from there. I think Gertrude posted a link earlier on, but you can get that from there. And the video will be available in about an hour. I think I just said that. I think Andras is doing an actual talk on design next week, so it'll be great to see Andras's talk as well. So thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to stop recording, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.